Hey guys, what's up? Steve and I have my Expedition up on the lift, and we're getting ready to throw a set of wheel hub assemblies in it. So we're going to show you what's involved with it. We're going to replace the four-wheel drive actuator too while we're in there, and let's get rolling on this. Before we get started, remember to subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, and subscribe to all of our notifications. That way you'll get a heads up when we upload a new video.
All right, we're going to pop this little cap off here for starters. Trying to get underneath it, get it to move a little bit. Goes 14 millimeter for this little nut right here. I'm just going to take this off now. We've already done his brakes on this thing, so we're going to use a 19 millimeter and get on the back side over here and take off the whole caliper bracket, and we're going to hang it from a bungee cord. So we'll take the 5/16 off here, or 8 millimeter if you will. And surprising, you know, on the other side, we've done the other side already, and everything came apart pretty good, which is pretty nice. Nothing broke. I was very surprised for the spindle head bearing to come off, so we're very hopeful that this side does the same thing for us. So
when you're doing wheel hub bearings, you always want to do them in pairs. Even if one's bad, more than likely, shortly after, the other side's more than likely going to fail too, right, Steve?
yeah, and you end up chasing them, you know.
Yeah.
And we've always tried to let's try and save the guy some money, and you know what? You end up coming back with it, and if it's your own vehicle and you got 90,000 miles, 100,000 miles on it, you know what? Change the bolts. I get it if you're getting rid of the car or whatever, but if you're keeping it, you're gonna want to change them in pairs. So I got this sensor just pulling the rubber boots off here, and I have a tool to pull these. And it's just a little handy tool here, and we'll get behind and just pull these out. And we got another one up here. It's the same thing, and just try and get it behind it and pop those out. And if we follow it up, it comes up here underneath the fender, and try to peel this thing off. Now we just popped it off, so we're going to pull this out and then slide it back into the plug here. And to get this thing off, we just have to squeeze and then disconnect it here. Let's get this plug off right now. I don't want it to go flying on me. At least the other side was a little easier.
That came right out.
Yeah. Okay. Now we're going to just slide this clip back in here so it locks in. Let me get the light. Oh, here we go. Okay, it's locked in. So when we put it in, it'll just push back in. Normally you can pry it out. It just was busting with this. All right, so we got the sensor here, and we're just going to tuck it over onto this side. So it's out of my face now, and we have the actuator, the caliper flex hose over here off, and there's two actuator flex hoses right here that we're going to use a little screwdriver and just pry them off. Or we can use the same tool that we just used, and this will pop these off. Tony's going to talk about the new actuators, and it's funny because they're using a different system than using the vacuum, but you still plug the vacuum line on. So we're getting the 19 millimeter bolts off for the caliper brackets in the back here. I got my 1/2-inch ratchet in here to crack these loose, and we're taking the caliper off with the bracket because we're not doing brake work on it. We've already done that, so we're going to take these two bolts off the caliper and lean it a little bit and collapse the brake pad just a little bit, just so when I go to put it back on, it's going to be a little easier. And all I'm trying to do is collapse the pistons just a little bit, just so the caliper slides off like it did, nice and easy. I'm going to take the collar pin out of the tie rod, and we've already done his tie rod ends as well. A couple things. We're putting the lug back on, and these rotors are a nightmare to take off. Now, we never seized these when we did the brakes, but see how it's building up corrosion right here? and that's from the aluminum wheels. So you're trying to keep these heavily never-sees. So now to take this rotor off, I can't bang on this because I don't want to destroy it. So we're going to try and hit it with the hammer. Okay, all right, so we're going to rotor off. We're going to soak the bolts here for the spindle hub bearing. There's 4 of them. Let's get these wet. All on this side, okay? And we need to, when we go to separate the axle, we can't get the actuator off unless we disconnect the ball joint and the upper and lower ball joint. So we're going to hit our tie rod right now and take this off. Okay. These were 129 foot-pounds for these bolts, for the 4 of them to hold it on. Man, they didn't seem like they were that tight when we took them apart. Okay, so we got the 18 millimeter shallow socket. I'm gonna crack these loose. I'll get the air ratchet after I crack these all loose. We use the 13/16 on it, the swivel. We're gonna get a bar in here, a big bar. We're gonna hold pressure down on this because when you start taking these off, we soak this with oil. You don't want the shaft to start spinning. It turns them a pain in the ass. So we're gonna hold pressure down on it with the swivel socket on this and take this off and see if we can get this out in one shot. They always do that, man. We're gonna put a little never-sees on this right now because we're gonna thread this nut back on a little bit to hold the control arm from falling down when we take the lower ball joint off. So we're just gonna try to catch the threads a little bit by hand. Okay. Because when this comes out, when we get this thing down, this ball joint is going to be free and it's going to tend to want to spin once we take it out of here. So we're going to back the nut off on the bottom one here, and we can take this one right off so that when we start hitting these and it falls, it's not going to fall on the ground because that top one's going to hold it for us. This is a 15/16 we're using. Fits nice and tight. Okay. Okay. That fell down. That's the hardest part of the whole job. Okay, so we got this down. That one's off. We're going to use our pry bar. We can push in on our axle now. See how it's moving in here? Okay, so that's okay. So we're going to take the whole assembly off and then change the actuator on the table over here. And we're going to get set up to do that. All right, we're going to unbolt the spindle hub. We were pretty surprised. We just hit this a little bit and it actually came right off. I'm kind of amazed that it actually comes right out because we're going to take our 5/16. All right, so these are not very tight, but we want to make sure that they run down really good and even. So they said, I think the torque was 112 inch-pounds for these. All right, so we're taking the last one off. It comes right out. And that's what the old style, original Ford ones looks like. And we're gonna clean this surface up here, make sure that this is all nice and clean. We got a small screwdriver. We'll get this all rust-free and clean because that's where the rubber seal right here sits. You watched this before, you know I like putting a little thin coating of grease where my seals are going to be. You want everything to slide together nice. I'm running my threads down with some never-sees to make sure they're clean. And you know, 112 inch-pounds is not a lot of torque, so you don't want to get a tight bolt that's throwing your torques back off. So I just choose you know, to run these down. This isn't like a valve body bolt, which actually has the same torque spec on a lot of valve bodies, which is all lubricated. You know, this can get rust and debris in there, and so you want to run these down so that, you know, you make sure you get a nice even torque on these things. Fitting is up here. It fits in really nice and easy. And we're going to catch our bolts that we've already got never seized and all lubed up nice. All right, so we're going to torque these and grease this up, and we'll be ready to go. So here's the spline we were talking about. You want to make sure your axle is nice and clean here. This is all nice and clean, and your teeth are good and lubricated here, which ours are, and we have a grease fitting on ours, and that's what's going to get grease in there. So let's just sit this down gently, and we're going to feed the control arm, the spindle up underneath the lower control arm, and we're going to put some never seize on this right now and get everything all ready to go. And we have to put some pressure to catch the bolts tight, and we'll show you how we do that. Get the shaft to come in here. Just start the nut on that for now. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. I'm squeezing pretty tight, and I'm going to try and run this thing up. And once I get it started, I don't really want to stop. I'm squeezing this, and I'm going to try and get this thing to start on here. I'm going to get my pliers set up to squeeze the bottom of this. There's like a little nub sticking out here that I'm trying to grab. Put a little pressure on it.
On the top wall joint, Steve grabbed it with the pair of water pump pliers. I pried down on the A-arm on the top, and I kind of had to do this off camera, kind of short-handed, but I zapped that up with the gun, the impact, and we had to put pressure on the top A-arms so that wouldn't spin, the ball joint wouldn't spin.
Yeah. So right now, we got our axle in place, and we've trusted, we've got the spline in here, so it's all set in. We've got our actuator torqued in the back. We're going to put some never seize in here, never seize on this, and we're going to bolt our spindle hub bearing on right now. We're going to slide this onto the spline, nice and slow. Fits right in. Let's catch a couple of bolts here. We have our little 3/8 ratchet that we're going to use to bottom it out, and then we're going to torque these at 129 pounds.
Foot-pounds,
and it didn't seem like it came off at 129 pounds. Alright, so we're going to torque these. It's going to snug. 129 is pretty tight. Okay, we're going to put our little 14 millimeter nut on. I'm going to snug this up right now. And then we're going to torque our back of our axle spindle bearing bolts with the 18. And this thing doesn't take a lot. Let's get that snug. You don't want to over tighten it. You'll snap that right off when you're buying an axle. Okay, so that's good. And let's get the torque wrench. Okay, we're going 129. Okay. All right, there's a 129 for those. We've got our nut back in here snug. That's all torqued. And then this thing tucks up behind here. And we're gonna throw it onto this side for now so that we can get our vacuum lines on. Tony can get in here with the light. I'll show you, we're gonna put these vacuum lines on, even though they're kind of deadheaded, they're plugged. They want you to put them back on so you don't have a vacuum leak. He's got the grease fitting, Tony's gonna be able to grease that. I'm gonna get the tie rod put back on right now. We got our cotter pin lined up on that. All right, we got that in. So we've made sure that our upper ball joint is tight, our lower ball joint is tight, our cotter pin is back in, so the suspension is safe. And when you put the hub in, you gotta give this thing a little twist motion, because it's got a fine spline in there. So as you're snugging up the hub onto the spindle, you want to give it a little turn so that it falls right into place. Because there's a spring in there that you're going to put a little pressure on. If you don't, and that'll be okay. You'll eventually, when you turn the wheel, it'll snap and pop in place, but just want to get it to go in nice and easy. So we're going to slip some niveces on the new spindle hub bearing so we can stop that corrosion that happens from the rotor and the aluminum wheels. Trying not to touch the rotor. Yeah, it feels like we got it. Don't look over this caliper till you're sure.
Don't want that falling on you.
No, the hose not kinked at all. So, take it out of the bolt. Yeah, get that in here. Tony's gonna be driving a nice quiet truck again.
Oh my God, it's been rumbling away. Sounds like I've been driving over a washboard.
Got a 10mm bolt here for the caliper flex hose bracket. Okay, then, so now we can start feeding that hose on. Now these hoses are, they measure these things perfect, okay, for the amount that you're supposed to have here. So right now, when you look at this, clips into this hose right here, and then it starts working its way up over into this one. I mean, these things are like perfect fit from where they should be. So this bolt that goes over into the caliper is only going to go on into the spindle, only goes one way. And we'll plug this into here. And we stick this up here, and we tuck that back through. Okay, and that's the way that's supposed to fit. Now, this last bolt, which what I was saying is this thing is only going to fit one way. So it goes in like this, it lines up with the bolt, and you can't flip it over. You can't go the other way because it's not going to allow you to, because there ain't enough slack in the thing. So it's going to fit just like this. So we're going to catch that bolt now and tighten that little one down. Same thing, a little niveces on it. We're going to snug this up. And the way this clip is, it kind of squishes it into the spindle. But when you look at the play that you have here, it's very minimal. This is just the way it was factory. So it's a nice tight fit here. So we're going to pop our cap back on. We got the grease fitting greased, and we greased that tie rod in as well while it was in here. So we got our caliper bracket bolts tight. We get the clip all plugged in and wired the proper way. The brackets tightened back on for the flex hose. And we also have our vacuum lines on this side plugged in. And our ball joints are done, upper and lower. We tighten the axle nut on it, which is very small. tie rod's back on, the cotter pin is in, and we can put the wheel on, pump up the brake pedal because we did collapse the pistons a little bit, and he's ready to go.